Over the past year, I've had the opportunity of working with two incredible companies to review their microphones. We've had Fifine and Elgato. What I've come to realize through testing a bunch of different mics is that they all have their own purposes, and I've got four here that I want to show you today that I would consider to be budget microphones, and all of them have their own strengths and weaknesses, and of course they all have different budgets. So let's put all of these head to head. Three things I quickly want to tell you before we jump into things, just to avoid any weird complications. Number one, this video isn't biased. Although these companies may have sent me the microphones in the past, they are not aware of this video. They don't get to edit or change anything. They don't even get to watch the video before it goes live. There are, however, affiliate links in the description if you want to buy any of these mics, because I need to eat. Number two is that there are no EQ adjustments until the final segment of this video. So everything you're hearing is just raw going through USB-C into my PC, no changes, modifications, nothing. Just what these mics sound like when you buy them. There are chapters down below if you want to skip to a certain segment, but I do recommend that you watch the whole thing because there are microphones that are suited more towards a type of content that you could be creating. Microphones that are focused on voiceovers and streaming and podcasts. It may just help you to get an earful of each microphone and then make your decision afterwards. Oh, and after this point, there's not going to be any music in the video because you came here to listen to the mics. You don't want to... For some reason, every tech reviewer seems to do it. It's like, I'm going to show you the quality of this mic, but you're going to have to listen to it with a lo-fi track in the background. No faffing around. Let's dive straight into this. Okay, so we're starting strong with something that looks similar to the Shure SM7B, which is a beautiful microphone. But nope, this is the first budget microphone. This is the Fifine K688. Not only is this aesthetically one of the best microphones on the list, but I think it's one of the best sounding. It's got a really nice natural tone, great sound isolation. It's a really wonderful all-rounder, but I think the reason that I wanted it personally was because I wanted to get two Shure SM7Bs, and that was going to cost me something like 700 quid. I don't have that kind of money to just throw at a couple of microphones. So for all intents and purposes, this does the job, it does it well, and it's a fraction of the cost of what it's emulating. Now we move on to the Fifine AM8, and this is a strikingly unique looking microphone. I mentioned this in my main review, but it's hard to make this thing look unintrusive, particularly when you get it in white. It's like, it just dominates the scene. It comes with a stand, which is cool, but to get the best out of this microphone, you really need it to be close to your face because it's got really thick filters. Without any EQ adjustments, it's also pretty quiet, even when you just put it at this kind of distance. As you can see, I've dropped down to negative 20 decibels, which isn't that big of a deal, but it's something to bear in mind if you don't know how to EQ things and add compressors. Where this one excels, though, in my opinion, is the quality. If you need a microphone for voiceovers, this one is definitely my favorite. The noise isolation is absolutely incredible, as you will see in a minute. So if you have a lot of fans around you, Xbox, PC, things like that, or maybe you're trying to record videos in a house that's filled with family members that are incredibly uncourteous and would just want to be as loud as possible when you're recording, this microphone I think could be a great option for you. The Fifine Tank 3 is honestly my least favorite of the bunch. Now, as you can hear, it's definitely not a bad microphone by any means. It's just the other two shine in their own areas. The AM8 serves as a great microphone for voiceovers. The K688 is a great microphone for podcast, and it's visually appealing. So where does the Tank 3 fit in? Well, I think the answer lies in its build quality, because this thing, it's named Tank 3 for a reason. It is way heavier than all of the other microphones, which should mean that there's more vibration resistance. So if you're a streamer and you have a bunch of energy and you're flying all over the screen, I think the Tank 3 could be a great option for you. So on-screen microphone / podcast kind of vibe, voiceovers and script reads and maybe voice acting, this one could be the perfect microphone for live streamers. Finally, we have what I would consider to be the all-rounder. This is the Elgato WAVE 3. Now, I think that the Elgato WAVE 3 is fundamentally the most different microphone than the rest of the bunch. Not only because it's made by a different company, but also because there's some things that are very different to the others. See, I haven't mentioned it beforehand, but all of these microphones have both an XLR input and USB-C, meaning that if you have a fancy setup with mixers and monitors and all that kind of stuff and you want to do XLR, you can, and you'll be able to get the most out of the microphone by by doing so. But then even if you're in a cafe, you can just sit down with an iPad, plug this thing in through USB, and you can do whatever you need to do. The WAVE 3, however, does not have XLR. Elgato make XLR microphones like the DX, but this one is just USB-C. It's also more expensive. However, there are a bunch of things that come with the WAVE 3 that make it very different from the rest. Wavelink, the software that comes with the Elgato 3 microphone. You see, while the Fifine microphones generally work pretty damn well by themselves, there's no way to really fine-tune them unless you go through XLR and you change all the settings with a big expensive mixer. The WAVE 3, on the other hand, comes with this software that is a suite of tools and plugins that include equalizers, compressors, noise gate, and things like that, things that you would need to make your microphone sound as good as it possibly could. And we'll look into that towards the end of the video. But not only does that software manage this microphone, but it also manages every other device and music source and browser on your computer all at once in one little suite of tools. The Wavelink software has genuinely changed the way that I manage my audio. So while the microphone definitely is the most expensive on the list today, and we'll get into the pricing in a minute, the money you save not having to buy mixers and all the other tools to be able to get the most out of those other microphones, do you think it's worth saving that money and then getting this? You tell me. I'm not going to say yes or no because, again, it depends on how you do things. In terms of audio quality, the WAVE 3 is like the middle ground between all of those things. It's great, and it's actually my daily driver on my gaming channel, primarily because of the software. So if you want a device that will just do everything for you and isn't dedicated to voiceovers or podcasts, you just want a device that can sit at your desk, do all of your calls, do your voiceovers, do your streams, the WAVE 3 could be the one for you. Now we're going to move on to plosive tests, noise isolation, and a bunch of other elements that may affect your decision when considering these mics. I'm really curious as to which one you think sounds best so far. Let me know what you think. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. 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 She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashores by the seashore. Now we have the noise isolation test. Over the next 15-20 seconds, I'm going to talk to you and ramble, while there's also some background noise. I have an ambient cafe kind of sound playing from my phone, which is around about 20 to 30 centimeters away from the mic, and I've got some music playing on the TV over here. I was thinking about doing a wind test for these examples, but then I sat down and I was thinking, like, would you be taking these microphones into an open field and recording a voiceover? But I mean, they are USB-C, so you could just take them with your phone, plug them in, and record whatever you want, wherever you want. For the last test, I'm actually going to tap each microphone a couple of times just to see how well, particularly with this one and the shock mount, the microphones absorb those vibrations. I recognize that this probably isn't ideal for most people. I think for anybody interested in live streaming, this is definitely something to consider. You don't want to breathe on the microphone just for it to sound like your grandma creaking away about to blow away in the wind. Now, before we jump into the final segment of this video, which is the EQ adjustments and things like that, I'll have a whole video coming out on all of that soon. Make sure you tap subscribe to stay up to date with that. I always feel like those plugs are so forced. Tap subscribe and like the video. I want to share a few technical details about this microphones and of course discuss the pricing for those who care about it. If you're not interested in all that, again, use the chapters down below to skip ahead. But there's some things, like if you're thinking about accessories for microphones, do you need a shock mount and such like, stuff that you want to consider, let's talk about it. As I mentioned earlier on, all of the Fifine microphones have the XLR and the USB-C. This one doesn't. It's worth noting, however, that when using XLR on any of these microphones, you do not need phantom power. Sometimes that's something you realize later on and you have to go and buy other stuff. Don't worry about it, you don't need phantom power for these guys. The frequency response on both the AM8 and the Tank 3 is between 50 to 16 kilohertz, whereas the K688 is between 70 and 15 kilohertz, and the WAVE 3 is between 70 to 20 kilohertz. So with my very basic understanding of audio engineering, and feel free to correct me in the comments, tell me that I'm an idiot, but I'm pretty sure that means when using the AM8 or the Tank 3, if you have a slightly deeper voice like I do, these microphones are going to favor that that deeper tone. You're going to get that real rich bassiness. However, if you're using something like the WAVE 3 or the K688, if you've got a slightly more feminine tone and you're a little bit higher pitched, those vocals are going to sound a little bit better. Again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm still learning about all this. If you're thinking about pop filters and shock mounts and things like that, it's worth noting that the AM8 actually has a removable pop filter. It's also got a guard, and then the actual diaphragm itself is just underneath that. That's why the noise isolation is so good, because this thing it's thick, like Kim Kardashian level thick for this guy. And the K688 also has the removable pop filter. It's nowhere near as thick as the AM8, so you're not going to get that level of noise isolation, but it is removable. And the K688 also comes with a built-in shock mount, so you don't have to go and buy that separately. And all the microphones come with microphone arm mounts, and there's actually 2 thread sizes in each bit right in here, so just make sure that if you have a microphone arm, you're going to be using one, that it fits what you need, because I don't think you're going to even need adapters. All of the microphones have dials that control both the gain of the microphone and the audio monitoring. The pricing for the AM8 starts at around about $55. The K688 starts at around about 70, the Tank 3 is around about 80, and the Elgato is the pricier one at around about 160. If that seems a little bit too expensive though, like I said, the main appeal for me personally is the Wavelink software. You can go ahead and get something like the WAVE Neo, which is around about $80, or the WAVE DX, which is around about 110, and buying any of those will get you access to the Wavelink software, which again is the main appeal, particularly if you're into streaming or content creation. That alone is worth the price, and you don't have to buy the mixer, so that could be a reasonable trade-off for you. Finally, to wrap up this video, I'm going to turn on all of my EQ adjustments. Now, these are, tailored to my voice, so I wouldn't entirely recommend doing what I do. I'll have a video on how to set it up yourself for your voice in the future. That's probably coming in a week or 2. I'll be doing all this in the Wavelink software, not only adding EQ adjustments, but also compressors and noise gates. Again, I'll have a full video on all that soon, but are you ready for this? 3, 2, 1. Magic. I never really cared much for fine-tuning my audio until recently. I'm still figuring things out, but if you compare this to the sample a couple of seconds ago, or even any sample of these microphones coming up throughout this video, there's a big difference, and I think it's definitely worth taking that time to learn about it and understand it. It's definitely worth saying that although all this is being done in Wavelink, you can do this with pretty much any software or even hardware. Hardware is typically pretty pricey though to be able to get this level of customization. This is just what works best for my workflow. Not only can you apply the filters and the EQ settings and things like that to the microphones themselves, but you can also apply them to literally any other audio source. That means you can add compressors directly onto your gameplay, so loud moments can be reduced and quiet moments can come up. You can also add limiters so that you don't have to worry so much about balancing your audio when you're talking. There's gameplay going on, you got some music, just makes life a lot easier. The main reason I use Wavelink is just for efficiency. I feel like efficiency is part of my brand image now, if that's a thing. Anyway, you tell me, how are you feeling about these microphones with all the EQ settings turned on? It's the same settings, just copy and pasted for each microphone, but I think with the microphone's natural tones all being different, you're definitely going to be able to hear that difference coming through. That's all for this video. I'm not going to go ahead and pick favorites. Like I said, it is entirely down to you, your workflow, the way that you do things. If you have any questions about the microphones, the way that I do things, or perhaps even the way that I made this video, let me know down in the comments and I'll be more than happy to help you out. I do definitely recommend that if you're interested in a specific microphone, go and watch my review for that specific mic, because I go into a lot more detail about how to set things up, what makes them unique, what they're good at, and what they're bad at in those videos. I love your faces, you're amazing, you're beautiful. Subscribe for more videos just like this, and I will catch you in the next one.